Sí, sí, sí.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable Ibu Dr. Hajahsi Sumarni, MPD, as the Dean of Faculty Tarbiyah and Education Sciences, Professor Dr. Nasrin from Department of Education, Aligarh Muslim University, India, Professor Abdul Razak Zakaria from University of Malaya, Malaysia, Dr. Candidate Laili Ramadhani from STIT of Diniyah Putri Padang Panjang, West Sumatra, Indonesia, Dr. Sigit Purnama, MPD, as the Chief of Early Childhood Islamic Education Study Program, and Dr. Candidate Rohina from Department of Early Childhood Islamic Education as the Secretary, lecturer from State Islamic University Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar today. We will have a theme, neuroscience, mainstreaming on early childhood education. We have to thanks to Allah that give us health and opportunity to us that we can meet online in this situation. First of all, I will introduce myself. My name is Aini. I'm here, became your moderator today. And this international webinar is presented by Study Program of Early Childhood Islamic Education, Faculty of Education and Teaching Science at Islamic University, Sunan Kalijaga. Before we begin our webinar today, I will ask you, let's open our webinar today with saying Basmalah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Before I give the time to Ibu Dr. Sri Sumarni, I will read the profile of Early Childhood Islamic Education Study Program, State Islamic University, UIN Sunan Kalijaga. This webinar is presented to you by the Early Childhood Islamic Education Study Program, which is the youngest study program at UIN. And its vision is to be superior and leading in the integration and development of Islamic, scientific, and Indonesian values to prepare early childhood educators. And if you need further information about our study program, you can visit our website at piaud.uin-suka at ac.id, or you can check our social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube in Piaud Uin Sunan Kalijaga, and you can check our bookstore at Shopee, Piaud Bookstore. Okay, thank you. And I will give the time now to Ibu Hajah Dr. Sri Sumarni MPD to give the first presentation today. To Ibu Dr. Hajah Sri Sumarni, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Aini. This time for me. Mohon maaf Bapak Ibu, tadi saya belum bisa membuka unmute. Jadi tadi mau bicara masih di unmute oleh host. Saya belum bisa membuka. Waduh, ini hostnya masih terus menutup. Baik, terima kasih atas waktu yang diberikan, Aini. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Professor Nasrin from Department of Education, Oligat Muslim University, India. Professor Abdul Razak Zakaria from University of Malaya, Malaysia. Dr. Candidate Laili Ramadhani from STIT of Diniah Putri, Padang Panjang, Indonesia. Dr. Sigit Purnama MBD and Dr. Candidate Rohina from Department of Early Childhood Islamic Education. Lecturers from State Islamic University, Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome everyone to the international webinar on neuroscience mainstreaming early childhood education. It is an honor for me to speak on behalf of the Faculty of Education and Teaching Science, State Islamic University, Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta. Sincerely thanks to Dr. Sigit Purnama MBD as the Chief of the Early Childhood Islamic Education Study Program for organizing the webinar. Next. Yes. Early childhood is golden age. The treatment given to early childhood became an important foundation in the life to come. When a child is born, the brain cell reaches 100 billion, which are interconnected. When a child enters the age of 3 years, his brain cells have formed about 1,000 trillion network connection. Each stimulus the child receives will create a new connection, strengthen the existing one. Therefore, simulation to children and early childhood learning are very important to strengthen their brain cell. Next, research by research of neuroscience by Osborne, White, and Bloom state that the intellectual development or intelligence of children aged 0 to 4 years reaches 50% and varies at the age of 0 for 8 years, it reaches 80%. And at the age of 0 for 18 years, it reaches 100%. This indicates that children's brain development has the greatest percentage when the child is still an early age. Various stimuli, such as educational play store, media, and learning resource can be make children active learning and continue to strengthen brain tissue. To strengthen brain tissue so that its growth become optimal. In this context, the existence of neuroscience can make children learn optimally based on the natural work of the brain. This webinar will discuss many issues in neuroscience mainstreaming on early childhood education with expert Professor Nasrin, Professor Abdul Razak Zakaria, and Dr. Candidate Laili Ramadhani. Please enjoy it. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ibu Dr. Hajah Sri Sumarni for the wonderful presentation. Di sini saya akan menyimpulkan sedikit ya Bu ya. Jadi dari yang Ibu sampaikan tadi, jadi anak ini ketika lahir seperti sudah siap untuk belajar. Children are born ready to learn. Dan di sini perkembangan otak anak di 3 tahun pertama ini adalah yang paling penting seperti itu untuk perkembangan selanjutnya. Terima kasih Ibu Dr. Sri Sumarni atas waktunya. For the next speaker, I will give the time to Professor Dr. Nasrin. And before I give the time to her, I would like to welcome to this webinar, Professor Nasrin. And Professor Nasrin is the chairperson of Department of Education, Aligarh Muslim University, India, and she has interest in research in environmental education, educational technology, curriculum development, and her teaching interest is methodology of teaching science. And Professor Nasrin have a lot of articles that have been published. At least there are 42 papers that has been published. Without further ado, I would like to give the time to Professor Nasrin. The time is yours.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Shall I share my PPT?
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Mas.
Shall I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, one and all.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
I am Professor Nasreen from Department of Education, Chairperson, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. Honorable Dr. Sri Sumarni, Dean of Faculty of Education and Teaching Science, Sunan Kalijanga State Islamic University, Yogyakarta, Indonesia, and other eminent speakers, Deputy Dean Professor Mukim, and others, ladies and gentlemen, my dear students, I pay hearty thanks to the organizers who have given me this opportunity to present my views on the topic learning religious and moral values for early childhood using a neuroscience approach. First, I would like to tell you what is neuroscience. Neuroscience is, as the name indicates, it refers scientific study of brain and the nervous system. As we all know that our all activities are governed by our brain, and this brain helps us to coordinate and to perform all other activities. Therefore, this neuroscience is a kind of science that provides a lot of platforms to work on, and it helps to understand how we perceive and interact with the outside world. What is our physical basis of our behavior? It is an interdisciplinary science that collaborates with other fields such as chemistry, computer science, engineering, mathematics, medicine, philosophy, physics, and psychology. The basic architecture of the brain is constructed through an ongoing process that begins before birth and continues into adulthood. Next slide, please. See this slide. The construction of the brain starts in the womb of the mother and it continues till age of 3. When the when the child is of age 3, the brain development is maximum, and the functional unit of the brain is neuron. Neuroscience can be studied at many different levels, ranging from molecular level to cellular level. And cognitive science is indebted to the field of neuroscience in general and cognitive neuroscience in particular. Cognitive neuroscience addresses how mental functions are supported by the brain. Next slide, please. This neuron is the unit of nervous system, and this neuron acts as a sender receiver. It receives and sends the messages. And cognitive science is a branch of neuroscience, and cognitive neuroscience that says that how our behavior is performed, how behavior is controlled. And cognitive neuroscience especially says that how the child at the early stage is behave and learn the moral and religious values. Next slide. The early years of a child's life lay the foundation for their future potential. In the first 3 years of life, a child's brain develops faster than at any other time, forming more than 1 million new neural connections every second. There is development of 1 million new neuron in every second. So, when at the start of the early childhood, the maximum development of brain takes place and new pathways can be developed, but early experiences establish the foundation, and change is much harder as children grow older. 80% brain development happens before child turns 3. So, at the early stage, that is from 1 to 3, there is maximum development of brain and the fastest rate of brain development in their whole life. Next slide. Now, see this. In this slide, neuroscience have sought the neural substrate of human morality, which establishes biological basis of moral behavior using various methods such as functional and structural neuroimaging and non-invasive brain stimulation method. It was given by Paul Drake in 2008. They have demonstrated how activity in brain regions associated with affection, cognition, motivation, and other moral psychological processes are related to moral functioning. See, at early age, the children starts learning with the help of pictures, with the help of toys, and they learn numeracy as well as literacy. The reason behind is that the sensory organs of the student or the child is acts very fast, and he tried to interact with each and everything. Children starts building the foundational skill for combination, counting, reading and writing very early, and early learning builds their vocabulary and their abilities to tell stories. Now, cognitive science that is also related to the neuroscience that functions for the learning of any kind of behavior. The term cognition is derived from the Latin word, which means cognoscere, which means to know or to recognize or to conceptualize. It refers to the mental processes an organism learns, remembers, understands, perceives, solves problems, and thinks about a body of information. This term cognitive development refers to the process of growth and change. Next slide, please. Process of growth and change in intellectual mental abilities such as thinking, reasoning, and understanding. Cognitive development is a field of study in neuroscience and psychology focusing on a child's development in terms of information processing, conceptual resources, perceptual skill, language learning, and other aspects of brain development. It includes the acquisition and consolidation of knowledge infants draw on socio emotional language, motor and perceptual experiences, and abilities for cognitive development. Next slide. The Jean Piaget was the psychologist who, born in 9th August 1896 in Switzerland, he discovered about the cognitive science and he explained in what way a child behaves and in what way a child starts learning through neurons or the nervous system supported by brain. The theory of Piaget is known as cognitive development in children. And this Piaget theory is uh, having 5 stages that is related to different age group. And this age groups is sensory motor stage, pre-operational stage, concrete operational stage, formal operational stage. And sensory motor stage, it starts from birth to 2 years. Pre-operational stage it starts from 2 to 7 years. Concrete operational stage starts from 7 to 11 years, and formal operational stage 12 and 12 and onwards. The sensory motor stage, major characteristics and developmental changes. The infant knows the world through their movements and sensations, and children learn about the world through basic actions such as sucking, grasping, looking, and listening. Infants learn that things continue to exist even though they cannot be seen, and they are separate beings from the people and objects around them. They realize that their actions can cause things to happen in the world around them. The first is the pre operational stage. Major characteristics and developmental changes that takes place at the pre-operational stage are children begins to think symbolically and learns to use words and pictures to represent objects. Children at this stage tend to be egocentric and struggle to see things from the perspectives of others. While they are getting better with language and thinking, they still tend to think about things in very concrete terms. The next stage is the concrete operational stage. At this stage, children begins to thinking logically about concrete events. They start to understand the concept of conservation, that the amount of liquid in a short while white cup is equal to that in a tall skinny glass, for example. The child can make a difference between these kind of objects. Their thinking becomes more logical and organized, but still very concrete. Children starts using inductive logic or reasoning from specific information to a general principle. The formal operational stage, next slide. Yes, at this stage, the adolescent or young adult starts to think abstractly and reason about hypothetical problems. Abstract thought emerges. Teens start to think more about moral, philosophical, ethical, social, and political issues that require theoretical and abstract reasoning. Begins to use deductive logic or reasoning from a general principle to the specific information. Now the child can understand the things and can generalize these kind of principle to others. Say, for example, if he sees any object in the outer world, he can understand the characteristics of that particular object. And if he finds somewhere the similar kind of object, he can connect the ideas with the outer situation. Next is moral development. The gradual development of an individual's concept of right or wrong, conscience, religious values, social attitudes, and certain behavior. Process by which children learn their moral beliefs and develop moral reasoning for making decisions regarding what is right and what is wrong. So, this is a theory that was given by Piaget to understand the adult, to understand the child's behavior at the age of early age. Now, the next theory, Kohlberg's theory of moral development. The Kohlberg's theory of moral development was also related to the behavior of the students. And before the start of the Kohlberg's theory, I would like to introduce the Kohlberg. He was an American psychologist and he served as a professor in the psychology department at the University of Chicago, US, and he worked on developmental psychology, and he was particularly well known for his theory of moral development, which he popularized through research studies conducted at Harvard Center for Moral Education. When we studied about from Piaget to Kohlberg, we find that the Kohlberg agreed with Piaget theory in principle, but wanted to develop his ideas further. He was agreed that there are so many sensory motor stages, so many developmental stages, and that varies from one stage to another on the basis of characteristics, but some kind of modification is needed. Kohlberg studied the moral reasoning as an aspect of cognitive development that has to do with the way an individual reasons about moral decisions. Kohlberg used Piaget's storytelling technique to tell people stories involving moral dilemmas. Both theories are stage theory. Kohlberg defined the moral development in different stages, and these stages are pre-conventional level. This is stage one, the punishment and obedience orientation. There, the at the stage, the student or the child can be punished and can be obedience orientation, the instrumental purpose orientation at the stage two. Conventional level, stage three, the good boy, good girl orientation. Stage four, the social order maintaining orientation. Post conventional level, stage five, the social contract orientation. Stage six, the universal ethical principle orientation. Now, what are the levels of moral reasoning? Pre-conventional moral reasoning is based on external rewards and punishment. Conventional laws and rules are upheld simply because they are laws and rules. Post-conventional reasoning based on personal moral standards. So, as the child grown up, the moral reasoning develops from one level to another. So, in the pre-conventional, moral reasoning is based on external rewards and punishment, and conventional is governed by laws and rules, and post-conventional is based on personal moral standards. Pre-conventional. Now, see the pre-conventional level. This is the first level of moral development of moral reasoning through neuroscience. Punishment and rewards dominate the sense of right and wrong. What is right, what is wrong, should I do this, should I don't do it. So these all are at the preconceived stage. Morality is externally controlled and rules of authority figures must be respected. Behavior that results in punishment are bad and behavior that results in rewards are good. The conventional level, the needs of laws and society are the defining features. Don't steal, don't do this because it is against the law. And good behavior are always motivated by the approval of the friends and relatives, and students or the child works faster when the behavior is approved by the friends and relatives. Understand that standards are set for the current social system, not getting that there is self-interest involved. Example, no such thing as a bad law. The post-conventional stage, personal moral beliefs and values. At this stage, there is development of personal moral beliefs and values regarding the external world, regarding the different situation, and these all characterized by references to universal ethical principle that represent protecting the rights or all of people. Most adults do not reach this level because it is the highest level of moral beliefs and values. Now we come to the religious values. The religious values are much more concerned with helpfulness, generosity, giving, charity, love for animal world, environment, cleanliness, love of knowledge, courage. These all comes under the religious values. But how to develop these values in our child and at childhood stage, in what way it proceeds, let, let us discuss. The objective of early childhood education is to establish a foundation for the development of a child's character, behavior, knowledge, skills, and creativity to spur further development and growth. And there are six aspects of development for this: moral religious values, social and emotional development and independence, language ability, cognitive ability, motor ability, and artistic ability. Then importance of early childhood care and education. Now, what is the duty of a teacher? What is the duty of a parent to develop these all in our child? Or, because the child is the future of the country and he has to do a lot of things. The future of any society depends on its ability to foster the health and well being of the next generation. Today's children will become tomorrow's citizens, workers, and parents. When we fall to provide children with what they need to build a strong foundation for healthy and productive lives, we put our future prosperity and security at risk. Science has a lot to offer about how we as a community can use our collective resources most effectively and efficiently to build that strong foundation. When we invest wisely in children and families, the next generation will pay that back through a lifetime of productivity and responsible citizenship. When we do not make wise investment in the earliest years, we will all pay the considerable cost of greater number of school aged children who need special education and more adults who are understand employable, unemployable, or incarcerated. When we invest wisely in children and families, the next generation will pay that back and through a lifetime of productivity and responsible citizens. Early childhood education must be optimized through appropriate parenting and education patterns. Therefore, it is necessary to choose the right learning model which scientific approach based so that the learning objectives can be achieved and the students' reasoning ability is increased, developed through the learning process. The scientific approach is considered as an effective way in cultivating students' creativity, imagination, and ideas to develop the aspect of religious and moral values. In this regard, teachers are then required to have creativity in designing scientific based activities to foster students' understanding so that the development of religious and moral values optimally achieved and internalized in their daily lives properly. Through learning activities while playing direct demonstrations and concrete examples, children will learn easily. In addition, critical thinking skills are also needed to help children receive material that is not in the form of physical material. And this is our duty of teachers and the parents to provide the environment to this conducive environment to our children to develop moral and religious values in order to make them productive citizens of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Nasrin, for the wonderful presentation. Here I will summarize. Uh, saya akan menyampaikan apa yang sudah disampaikan, menyimpulkan sedikit. Jadi tadi disampaikan bahwa uh, perkembangan otak anak pada usia 3 tahun pertama ini adalah perkembangan yang paling cepat begitu, dan 80% perkembangannya itu memang terjadi di usia sebelum 3 tahun. Dan untuk maka dari itu kita harus mengoptimalkan momen tersebut. Kemudian Profesor Nasrin juga menjelaskan tentang teori perkembangan kognitif ya oleh Sean Biase, kemudian didukung oleh teori Kohlberg tentang moral development yang ada 3 level seperti itu, pre-konvensional, konvensional, dan post-konvensional yang dibagi masing-masing menjadi 2 tahap seperti itu. Kemudian selain cognitive development dan moral development, di sini kita juga harus mengembangkan religious values seperti itu, nilai-nilai agama seperti itu. Kemudian karena anak-anak ini adalah memang masa depan dari setiap negara, maka kita harus berinvestasi sebijak-bijaknya dalam pendidikan anak ini sendiri. Kemudian yang terakhir, dan untuk berinvestasi dalam anak supaya optimal tersebut bisa melalui parenting dan education pattern seperti itu. Thank you Professor Nasrin for the wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, for the next speaker, I will welcome Dr. Candidate Laili Ramadhani from STIT Padang Panjang. Benar Ibu? Halo, Assalamualaikum Bu Laili.
Ya, waalaikumsalam.
Ya, Oke, sebelum saya memberikan waktu kepada Ibu Laili, sedikit mungkin saya akan membacakan CV beliau ya. Jadi Ibu Laili ini adalah sekarang merupakan anggota dari National Association for the Education of Young Children, betul ya Ibu ya?
Ya, betul.
Ya. Dan di sini Ibu sedang berkewajiban bertugas di STIT of Diniyah Putri Padang Panjang, Sumatera Barat, begitu. Ya. Oke, mungkin untuk mempersingkat waktu, saya akan memberikan waktu kepada Ibu Laili Ramadhani untuk menyampaikan presentasi beliau. Terima kasih kepada Ibu Laili Ramadhani, dipersilahkan.
Oke. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Summa sholatan salaman ala Rasulillah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Alhamdulillah Bapak Ibu semua, pada hari ini kita bisa bertemu dan diizinkan Allah untuk bertemu, untuk kita berbagi pengalaman, berbagi ilmu tentang neuroscience dalam pendidikan anak usia dini. Sebelumnya saya mohon maaf karena sebenarnya saya bukan pakar di neuroscience dan bukan seorang neurolog, tapi saya akan coba menjelaskan beberapa hal yang saya ketahui tentang neuroscience yang bisa kita aplikasikan dalam pendidikan anak usia dini. Yang saya hormati Ibu Dr. Sri Sumarni sebagai Dekan Fakultas Tarbiyah UIN Sunan Kalijaga. Yang saya hormati Profesor Nasrin dari India ya. Kemudian yang saya hormati juga Bapak Dr. Sigit Purnama sebagai Ketua Program Studi Pendidikan Islam Anak Usia Dini UIN Sunan Kalijaga, dan yang berbahagia kepada seluruh bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu yang sempat hadir di ruang Zoom ini. Oke. Tadi kita sudah mendengar penjelasan dari Profesor Nasrin tentang bagaimana teori-teori neuroscience itu digunakan dalam pendidikan anak usia dini ya. Oke, ini sedikit CV saya. Kita lewat saja. Oke. Neuroscience seperti yang telah dijelaskan oleh Profesor Nasrin tadi adalah salah satu bidang ilmu yang mempelajari sistem saraf atau sistem neuron. Atas dasar ini, neuroscience juga disebut sebagai ilmu yang mempelajari otak dan seluruh fungsi-fungsi saraf belakang ya. Jadi neuroscience itu adalah sebuah bidang ilmu yang mengkaji tentang bagaimana sistem saraf otak kita. Nah, dulu awalnya neuroscience, ilmu neurologi ini hanya digunakan dalam ilmu kedokteran, tapi pada saat sekarang ini sejak tahun 1960-an perkembangan neuroscience, ilmu neurologi itu berkembang sangat pesat ya, sampai neuroscience itu berkembang sangat pesat sampai di sekarang kita mengenal istilah neuroscience ini dalam pendidikan. Sebenarnya neuroscience itu bukan barang baru ya, bukan hal yang baru. Karena sebenarnya dalam Islam kita juga banyak sekali kita temukan ayat-ayat dalam Al-Quran atau dalam petunjuk dalam hadis Rasulullah SAW yang menyuruh kita untuk menggunakan akal ya, menggunakan akal. Artinya ya seperti di sini saya cantumkan beberapa ayat dan sebenarnya banyak sekali ya. Surat Al-Ankabut ayat 43 contohnya, watikal amsalu nadribuha linnas wa ma yaqiluha illal alimun. Dan perumpamaan ini kami buat untuk manusia dan tiada yang memahaminya kecuali orang-orang yang berilmu. Jadi yaqiluha illal wa ma yaqiluha illal alimun gitu ya. Jadi berakal itu orang yang, kalau bahasa neuroscience-nya, orang yang berotak itu, yang otaknya berfungsi dengan baik itu, ya, dia akan memahami semua ayat-ayat Allah yang ada di bumi, di langit dan di bumi ini, dan itulah yang membuat mereka menjadi orang-orang yang berilmu. Okay. Kemudian di surat Yunus ayat 100 kita juga temukan ayat wa ma kana li nafsin an tu'mina illa bi iznillah wa yaj'alur rijsa 'alal ladzina la yaqilun. Dan tiadalah sebarang kuasa bagi seseorang untuk beriman melainkan dengan izin Allah, dan Allah menimpakan azab atas orang-orang yang tidak mau memahami perintah-perintah Allah. Artinya orang-orang yang tidak menggunakan akalnya, intinya gitu ya, orang-orang yang tidak menggunakan otaknya dengan baik, tidak mengoptimalkan fungsi otaknya dengan baik, ya itulah orang-orang yang akan ditimpakan azab ya. Nah, itu di surat Yunus ayat 100 ini. Ya banyak lagi ayat-ayat yang lain bahwa ya, dikatakan bahwa orang yang tidak menggunakan otaknya itu orang yang bodoh, dan orang yang bodoh itu orang yang jauh dengan agama, seperti itu. Nah, artinya di dalam Al-Qur'an kita disuruh untuk mengoptimalkan fungsi otak kita. Nah, tapi pertanyaannya, kita sebagai guru misalnya, atau sebagai dosen, sudah seberapa kita memikirkan perkembangan otak anak didik kita, dan sudah sejauh mana kita mengusahakan untuk mengembangkan semua fungsi-fungsi yang Allah sudah berikan dalam otak itu, sehingga membuat atau mengarahkan anak didik kita atau peserta didik menjadi anak-anak yang berilmu. Dengan berilmu itu dia akan memahami semua perintah-perintah Allah, dan dengan ilmu itu dia akan menjadi orang-orang yang beriman dan bertakwa kepada Allah. Nah, jadi kenapa kita harus mempelajari neuroscience? Karena kita perlu paham apa yang Allah ciptakan di otak kita, bagaimana caranya memfungsikannya agar fungsinya menjadi optimal, dan bagaimana kita menggunakan otak itu sehingga kita mempunyai banyak ilmu, dan dengan ilmu itu kita bisa menjadi orang yang beriman dan bertakwa kepada Allah. Nah, itu sebenarnya poin pentingnya. Oh, kalau kita bilang neuroscience kan ilmu dari barat gitu ya, enggak juga gitu ya. Padahal dalam Al-Quran kita memang disuruh untuk mempelajari otak. Sebelum ilmu neuroscience berkembang, kita mungkin tidak pernah memikirkan bagaimana program-program pendidikan yang kita buat itu berpengaruh kepada otak anak kita gitu. Sambungan-sambungan di bagian mana yang berkembang ketika kita melakukan sebuah program pendidikan, kita mungkin sangat jarang untuk mengkaji itu. Tapi setelah ilmu neuroscience berkembang dengan pesat, kita jadi terbuka wawasannya, terbuka matanya, terbuka pikirannya untuk membahas itu lebih dalam. Oke. Nah, kemudian juga ada sebuah kata dari orang bijak ya, ad-dinu wal aklu ya. La dina liman la akla lahu. agama itu akal loh. Tidak ada agama bagi orang yang tidak berakal. Ya, ada sebagian yang mengatakan ini hadis, tapi saya sudah cari rujukannya, ternyata bukan hadis, itu sebuah perkataan orang-orang tentu sebuah kata mutiara ya. Ya artinya kalau kita mau menjalankan Islam dengan baik, ya kita kembangkan potensi otak kita. Kita kembangkan potensi otak anak didik kita sehingga dia menjadi hamba-hamba Allah yang siap untuk menjalankan semua perintah Allah dan meninggalkan semua larangan Allah. Oke. Nah, Bapak Ibu semua, kalau kita membicarakan komputer tanpa membahas chipnya, sama saja kita dengan tidak membicarakan apa-apa. Karena chipnya itulah yang akan menggerakkan semua sistem yang ada di komputer itu. Oke. Nah, kalau kita membicarakan pendidikan, apakah pendidikan anak usia dini atau pendidikan Islam gitu ya, tanpa membahas bagaimana proses pendidikan itu bekerja pada otak manusia, sama saja kita tidak membicarakan apa-apa. Jadi gini, otak kita ini ada softwarenya, ada hardwarenya. Softwarenya itu apa? Program-program yang kita instalkan setiap hari kepada anak. Ya, itu softwarenya. Hardwarenya apa? Hardwarenya adalah struktur otak, kondisi otak, bentuk otak itu. Gitu. Selama ini kita sibuk membicarakan kurikulum, kita sibuk membicarakan program-program yang harus dikerjakan di sebuah lembaga pendidikan, di sekolah atau di kampus. Kita sibuk membicarakan silabus misalkan seperti itu, tapi kita tidak pernah sangat jarang sekali membahas bagaimana kondisi otak anak yang akan kita beri program itu. Ya, sangat jarang. Oke, jadi selama ini kita lakukan program misalkan kalau di usia dini kita ada jurnal misalkan, terus ada kegiatan main fisik misalkan, main outdoor di luar kan. Tapi pernah tidak kita melihat korelasi atau pengaruh dari kegiatan itu ke struktur otak? Kira-kira ketika kita mengajarkan kepada anak-anak di TK misalkan membuat sebuah karya seni, pernah tidak kita bahas apakah karya seni ini, pekerjaan seni yang dia lakukan ini, misalkan membuat kolase itu, pernah tidak kita bahas sebelum kita memberikan itu kondisi otaknya sekarang seperti apa? Apa program yang mereka butuhkan agar bagian-bagian otaknya itu berkembang dengan baik? Kemudian apakah program kegiatan membuat kolase ini akan berpengaruh ke struktur otaknya atau tidak? Kalau berpengaruh, otak bagian mana yang akan berpengaruh? Oke. Sangat jarang ya kita lihat guru-guru, termasuk kita dosen sendiri gitu kan. Pernah nggak dosen-dosen, terutama dosen-dosen PIAUD gitu ya, sebelum di pertemuan awal pembelajaran itu sudah punya bundelan gitu ya, sudah punya file tentang kondisi otak mahasiswanya gitu. Kemudian dari analisa awal kondisi otak mahasiswa itu, lalu dosennya membuat program untuk agar otaknya, sambungan-sambungan di otaknya, sel-sel otaknya, sinap-sinap di otaknya itu berkembang lebih baik dengan program-program perkuliahan yang diberikan. Gitu. Kemudian setelah program itu dilakukan, kita mau lihat lagi apakah program itu memang menambah cabang otaknya atau tidak. Jangan-jangan program yang kita lakukan ya tidak berefek ke struktur otaknya gitu loh. Nah, termasuk di pendidikan anak usia dini, pernah tidak kita sebelum ketemu anak di awal tahun itu kita sudah punya catatan hasil observasi, hasil ADA misalkan, Early Development Instrument, tentang kondisi otak anak. Sehingga ketika kita membuat program di PAUD dalam hal ini kita artikan pendidikan dari usia 0 sampai 8 tahun, yaitu standar NICE ya. Jadi PAUD itu 0 sampai 8 tahun artinya dari baby house sampai kelas 2 SD. Pernah tidak kita menganalisa program-program yang kita lakukan di PAUD itu bisa tidak memperbaiki bagian otaknya yang rusak, misalkan gitu, atau mengembangkan bagian otaknya yang belum berkembang dengan baik. Ya sangat jarang ya teman-teman. Maksudnya sangat jarang kita melihat ada lembaga yang melakukan itu, atau kita sendiri juga sangat jarang melakukan itu. Kenapa kita tidak melakukan itu? Karena keterbatasan ilmu kita tentang otak. Gitu. Nah itu. Nah jadi intinya ketika kita membahas tentang neuroscience dan kita mau aplikasikannya dalam pendidikan anak usia dini, dalam pendidikan Islam anak usia dini, kita harus pahami bahwa dalam menyusun sebuah program pendidikan, kita harus pikirkan software dan hardware-nya otak. Software-nya itu adalah semua program-program yang akan kita buat dan kita instalkan ke otak anak, gitu ya. Hafalan Quran misalkan, seperti itu, kemampuan menulis, kemampuan membaca dan sebagainya, dan bagaimana kondisi hardware otak ini gitu. Bagaimana kondisinya? Apakah struktur otaknya itu menjadi lebih baik atau tidak? Ada yang rusak atau enggak? Ada yang belum optimal perkembangannya sehingga perlu kita perbaiki. Nah, kalau kita sudah begitu, maka kita akan bahas dua program. Satu, program yang akan mengisi softwarenya otak. Yang kedua, program yang akan memperbaiki atau mengembangkan hardwarenya otak. Ya, ada pemilihan makanan yang bisa mengembangkan sel-sel otak misalkan, atau gerakan-gerakan yang bisa membuat cabang-cabang otak semakin menjadi lebih baik, sehingga kita tahu bahwa struktur otaknya bertambah dan menjadi lebih baik. Nah, itu teman-teman. Jadi, kenapa kita perlu belajar neuroscience? Karena kita mau program pendidikan yang kita lakukan, program pendidikan Islam yang kita berikan kepada anak-anak itu tepat sasaran, betul-betul memperbaiki otaknya gitu, bukan program-program yang ya ala kadarnya. Pokoknya kita lakukan program ini, mau ngefek sama otaknya, mau enggak, kita enggak pikirin, bukan gitu ya. Tapi program-program yang ramah otak, program-program yang bisa mengembangkan sinap-sinap di otaknya, program-program yang membuat fungsi otaknya semakin maksimal. Nah, itu maksudnya. Oke. Nah, karena jejak pendidikan itu bisa kita lihat di otak ya. Nah, apa beda bayi manusia dengan bayi binatang? Oke. Bayi manusia itu ketika dilahirkan berbeda, kondisi otaknya itu berbeda dengan kondisi bayi binatang. Kalau otak bayi binatang waktu dilahirkan itu sudah tersambung, sehingga tidak jarang kita lihat bahwa bayi binatang itu ketika dia lahir, dia sudah punya kemampuan. Misalkan seperti bayi jerapah ya, anak jerapah ketika baru lahir, dalam hitungan beberapa menit dia sudah bisa berdiri, sudah bisa kemana-mana gitu ya. Begitu juga bayi sapi misalkan seperti itu. Jadi mereka langsung bisa melakukan